Today we're going to be releasing a new survey on Latino voter attitudes on water policy here in Orange County. The survey was conducted by Sextant Research, the principal investigator of which Jonathan Brown is here with us today. And we'll have a PowerPoint presented in a few moments, but first I wanted to make a few comments and also get comments from Nativo Lopez of Hermandad Mexicana. The survey is part of an ongoing project called Pro Agua, which is a Southern California-wide policy, education, and outreach initiative conducted by the Velasquez Institute in conjunction with many partners, including LULAC, Hermandad Mexicana, and others. More than 200 leaders are part of the Pro Agua initiative. This initiative is a response to the ongoing Southern California, really California-wide drought, which recently some analysts have stated that this drought could conceivably last 100 years. Previous California droughts have lasted as many as 25 years. What we were probing in the research is several questions. We wanted to know how intensively Latinos understood the whole drought issue here in Orange County. We also wanted to get a sense of where they placed water policy and drought response strategies in their priority list of policy issues compared to education, compared to jobs, compared to air pollution, et cetera, compared to crime and drugs. And we also wanted to understand what were Latino attitudes towards proposals for drought response strategies. There's an issue in Orange County around desalination. There's a desalination proposal before the Coastal Commission for a plant in Huntington Beach. The Orange County Water District has already said that there is a strategic shortage of water in Orange County for the foreseeable future, and so on. So we were very interested in probing these questions, and we have gotten some very interesting responses. You've got a press release from us here available to you, as well as a PowerPoint. I'm going to bring in Jonathan Brown from Sextant to go over the survey results, but before that I'd like to get some comments from Nativo Lopez, who is a founder of Hermandad Mexicana, which has offices throughout California and continues in his capacity as a senior advisor to them. Mr. Lopez.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, just briefly wanted to say that we add our voice and our organization to the efforts to address this issue of water shortage, the drought, the issue of the desalinization plant here in Orange County. I was commenting earlier today with Antonio that there's really no issue in California that's not our issue. Traditionally, we've been pigeonholed to only address, or at least presumed to only address, issues of education, healthcare, jobs, immigration. But really there's no issue here in California that's not our issue. What does that mean? Our population, Latinos, Mexican Americans, exceeds the population of any other ethnic or racial group here in California. So anything that exists in California is our issue. Water, technology, we were talking about the bullet train, certainly the issues of job, the state budget. Everything that occurs in California is a Latino issue, and that's the way we should view it. We should raise our voice and address any issue that concerns us, that affects our families. Certainly the issue of water, the drought, is most important to us because we have larger families. Our uses then are larger. Going into the future, our families will continue to be larger. We're a growing population, and so this is an issue very important to us. There's very, very few times that you can encounter polling numbers as high as those that will be revealed today, that Latinos are expressing views at 80 percentile, favorable to one solution or another. And that's what this poll reveals. That belies many times the criticism within our own community that we're never united. Well, these numbers here show that there's an absolute thundering majority of people that are expressing a view with relation to water and the drought, and that's why we're here to support these efforts of the Willie C. Velasquez Institute and the Southwest Voter Registration Project. Thank you.
So I know that you are waiting with bated breath for the results of the survey. Let me tell you a little bit about Jonathan Brown. Jonathan Brown is the principal at Sextant Research. He is a well-known survey scientist here in California. WCVI has had a long relationship with Sextant, and before Sextant with the Global Strategies Group, where Jonathan Brown is also a co-principal there. We have high confidence in their research capacity, and we're very pleased to announce the results of this Orange County Latino voter survey, more than 400 interviews over the last 2 weeks. Let me bring you Jonathan Brown.
Thank you, Antonio. It's always a pleasure and an honor to be trusted by the Velasquez Institute to conduct research in their behalf. As Antonio noted, we did conduct just over 400 interviews via internet in late September and early October. The way this survey worked was we took the available email addresses on the California voter file, sent invitations to everyone so that there was an equal opportunity to participate, and we were able to conduct 404 interviews in total. And as Antonio and Mr. Lopez alluded, there is very high, near unanimous levels of concern in the Latino community about the drought, but also similarly high levels of agreement regarding solutions. And that's what's really different about this survey. Every survey that we do in California, in any jurisdiction, if you ask about the drought and a list of problems, you will find that as many people are evidence a high level of concern about the drought as they do any other issue. But where this survey is different is that we look at solutions and really start to drill down into what people want to see. And ultimately, of course, we need solutions. We don't just need concern. And that's what this research provides. As I mentioned, 4 in 5 Latino voters have an extremely or very high level of concern about the drought, and that's particularly high amongst younger Latinos and women. And that's not surprising. These are, people are looking over what's going to be a lifetime here in Orange County, and are wondering what, how are we going to deal with the fact that our most precious life resource, water, is in shorter supply than we ever anticipated. 85% call the need for new local supplies of safe drinking water urgent. And of course, as many are aware, most of the water that comes to Southern California is shipped in from up north. And the need for local supplies is something that is highly desirable in the minds of most Latinos and in most voters overall. And 3/4 agree that if government does not act soon, there will be a serious water shortage in their communities. These are people who are under the impression, and I think correctly so, that that there needs to be definitive action in the very near future. More than 3 in 4 of Orange County Latino voters support desalination as a way to provide a long-term local drinking water supply, and even more want approval of the proposed Huntington Beach desalination plant. When we ask, and you'll see soon that we gave a variety of options for ensuring the long-term local water supply, and desalination is clearly the one that most voters are interested in seeing come to reality. Nearly 9 in 10, overwhelming number, 9 in 10 agree that local government should expedite approval of water projects. Again, this goes to the urgency that people feel about this problem. They're not seeing action, they're just seeing warnings about the drought. They're seeing restrictions on their usage, but they're not hearing about what can be done to alleviate the situation, and they want action. And support for this particular project is incredibly consistent across the political spectrum. Now, of course, we know that the majority of Latinos identify as Democrats, but when we look at people who do not identify with a party or those who identify as Republicans, there is no difference. So clearly this is an issue, and this particular project is one with support across the board, and I think that we can expand that belief to the population of Orange County generally. So here are our baseline attitudes about the drought, and as I mentioned, we have in a variety of issues, the drought is the number one. The dark color is the percentage of people who said they were extremely concerned, the lighter blue, very concerned, the red combined responses for less concerned. And when you compare the drought to crime in their communities, cost of home utilities, lack of funding for public schools, these are the traditional issues that we see atop the Latino community's issues of greatest concern for many years. And the drought is even a little bit higher amongst them, and only 18% say that they are not particularly concerned. So again, that goes to the overwhelming level of concern on this issue. And going hand in hand with that overall level of concern about the drought, the drinking water supply. You can see the question, the two questions that we ask in the gray boxes on top. Half of voters are extremely concerned about the long-term supply of drinking water, and 59% say it is extremely important for Southern California to generate more of its own water supply. And then when you combine the two shades of blue, 82% concerned about the long-term supply, and 88% think it's extremely or very important for us to produce more of our own drinking water here in Southern California. Again, these are just powerfully overwhelming numbers. And then we go from what we knew going in, or strongly suspected about the high level of concern, and then do something that's more interesting, which is to look at what solutions and how people feel about the different things that might be done. On the left, you see a list of potential solutions, and we asked people if they supported it or opposed it, and then if their support or opposition was strong or just more moderate. Stormwater capture, collecting rainfall for drinking water, 90% support that in some measure, and I'm kind of curious about the 6% who would oppose that. But that that's an easy solution. Desalination, turning seawater into drinking water, you see that's the second choice, and the second choice by a pretty wide margin. And even though that's something that's technologically involved, it's something that makes immediate sense to voters when we live in an area on the coast and we have this enormous resource. Half of voters strongly support it, and we're just about 80% total support. And obviously you see a pretty steep decline moving down to other solutions, groundwater reclamation, recycling, and then we do have majority support, albeit much more modest, for quotas. And of course that's a pretty steep change in our way of life. And I suspect that when people come to understand what quotas would actually mean, that those results might be a little bit different. And there is a lot less support for buying water from other parts of the state compared to using resources that exist here. And of course that's the goal that's very important to better than 4 in 5 Orange County Latinos. So then after we asked respondents to rank each of those particular solutions, then we asked them, which one are you most interested in seeing happen? And that's where we see the tremendous level of interest in desalination. 41% when voters were asked to choose one of these options, better than 2 to 1 over the next highest option, the stormwater capture. While the stormwater capture had greater support overall, people, I think, recognize that this is not a solution for a long-term stable supply of drinking water. It's an enhancement, but it's not a solution. The solution that most people feel strongest about is desalination. Again, the urgency of this issue. How likely do you think it will be that mandatory quotas for water usage will be instituted if there's nothing done to increase the local supply of water? And of course, we see well over 3 in 5 Latino voters saying that that's extremely or very likely. The expectation is that if nothing is done, we are going to have restrictions on how much water we can have. And I suspect that that's not something that most people are really prepared for when it's something that is as unprecedented as that. And so we have strong agreement regarding the urgency of acting now. You see a variety of statements about water issues and the level of agreement in the dark and light blue. State and local governments should expedite approval of projects that will guarantee our long-term supply of drinking water. And we're looking at 89% agreement. Again, these are overwhelmingly held opinions. Construction of projects to provide new local sources of drinking water like desalination are also good for the community because they create jobs and economic development. And again, the level of agreement with that idea is just about as high. So that this is viewed by most Latino voters as a win-win. We're guaranteeing the long-term supply of drinking water. In doing the need is urgent. And then 78%, if government does not act soon, there will be a serious water shortage in their individual communities. We do have 70% agree that the Latino community has equal access to safe drinking water. And then finally, we have a plurality who believe that Latino elected officials are doing a good job of addressing the drought and the long-term supply of safe drinking water, but with a significant percentage of folks who don't know. That's why that total bar is so much shorter than the others. Clearly, there is a need for education on these issues. And so finally, after we investigated the issues regarding the drought and the water supply comprehensively, we asked about the proposed facility in Huntington Beach and found that well over half of Latino voters in Orange County strongly support the approval of the Huntington Beach desalination project, and another 26% somewhat support it. So we're looking at 80 to 8. Again, this project is something that makes immediate sense to voters. It is exactly in line with their level of urgency about finding a solution, and is for those reasons something that Latino voters are showing their very, very high desire to see done. And obviously, going back to the earlier question about the importance of expediting these projects is something that they would like to see happen now. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Survey, sort of like, how did voters get to this survey? Like, how was it?
They received an email that asked them to participate in a survey. It didn't tell them what the subject matter was. It just said that we were interested in hearing your opinions about issues of local interest. And so we take the available emails on the voter file and we send messages that have a link to the survey on a common commercial survey platform.
And so, like, the emails were taken from a public voter file?
Well, the California voter file, the one maintained by the state, by the Secretary of State.
And there was only, you said, about 400 surveys taken?
Mm-hmm.
And how many emails in total, I guess, or an estimate amount?
There were, if I'm recalling correctly, we had around 100,000 email addresses, and each potential respondent received 2 or 3 emails asking for their participation. As with telephone research, it's not easy to get through people's inboxes with an unsolicited email.
Right.
What's the margin of error?
There is no margin of error on an internet survey. Not a probability sample. I think it's a poor practice for those who do internet research to just apply the probability sample margin of error to an internet survey. It's just not the same structure.
And what would these findings, where do you see these findings go from here? Like now that they're, that you presented it, what do you expect to see happen with these, with this data?
Well, my job is to do the research. I'm not an advocate. I think that's what the Velasquez Institute and other affiliated organizations will show to leaders in Orange County and make clear that the Latino community is interested in action on this issue.
Let me answer that, please. Now the survey data will be communicated to key policymakers in Orange County, on local governance boards, on regulatory bodies like the Coastal Commission, the State Land Board, the various water districts around Southern California, and also widely to Latino leaders. Just today, or simultaneously with this press conference, about 40,000 Latino leaders across the Southwest are receiving the press release from today, as well as the PowerPoint. It's also going up on the Velasquez Institute webpage, and it is up already. And furthermore, we will fashion it into an op-ed that will market to Orange County publications, and it'll be used to help inform a statewide California Latino Water Summit that is being convened on November 18th in Southern California, Los Angeles to be specific. Our intent at that Latino Water Summit is to bring together 100 key organizational and elected leaders for deliberation and develop a Latino water policy platform, very much in the spirit of what Latino leadership did at the National Latino Congress, which existed from 2006 to 2013, where policy positions and platforms were actually developed by Latino leaders, delegates, if you will, and then used for legislation and ballot measures and so on. So in that spirit, we're convening the Latino Water Policy Summit again on November the 18th. And this survey is part of the run-up to that summit. Now I want to thank you for your time and attention, and we will conclude this press conference. By the way, we are videotaping this press conference, and that videotape will also be posted on our website and on our Facebook and in social media, and we'll get it out to the same leaders as well. Thank you so much.